What is up, y'all? Don't mind me, it's just your boy 420 Man XX back at it with another gameplay guide. Today we're going to be learning how to do a triple jump in Super Mario 64, so without further ado, let's get into it. But first, don't forget to smash that like button, crash that notification bell, and molest that subscribe button. And without further ado, let's get into it. But first, a word from today's sponsor, Wells Fargo. Video games are the first truly interactive forms of media. While a movie or a TV show will play out the same way every time, regardless of what you do, video games demand input from the audience and will go literally nowhere without it. As a result, it's important to make sure your audience understands how to interact with your game. In the early days of gaming, it wasn't uncommon for games to simply drop you straight into the thick of it without any kind of tutorial or anything. Instead, you were expected to have read through the manual. Most games at the time were pretty simple, so a quick skim of the manual would usually get you a good enough idea of the controls to get you started. There were a couple problems though. First is that these games came in cardboard boxes that were usually thrown out, and as such, the flimsy paper manual was usually either lost or destroyed. These days, that means unless you're willing to pay out the ass for complete in-box copies of 30 to 40-year-old games, you'll have to rely on archival sites, or figure it out yourself. What do I do? The other problem is that as time went on, games were getting more and more complex. With multiple gameplay systems interconnecting with one another, a quick skim of the manual wasn't enough anymore. Thus, we saw the rise of in-game tutorials, a much more hands-on way of learning the game. Now, it might be tempting to just slap a press X to jump or whatever on the screen and call it a day, but there's an art to making a really good, effective tutorial. I know my eyes glaze right over when I see one of those controller maps before the game even starts. I appreciate having the chance to press all the buttons and see what they do before the game actually tries to teach me anything instead of just trying to memorize this controller layout. It's important to start small with a tutorial. When making a game, developers have to bear in mind that some of their players may have never played a video game before. If you have, you might roll your eyes at being told that you can use the left stick to move, but I work in the tech support industry where it isn't necessarily guaranteed that your audience knows which side of the keyboard has the buttons on it, so I know the value of stating the obvious. Even for your veteran video game playing audience, you don't want to throw too much in the tutorial at once. Especially for a complex game with lots of different mechanics, it's better to introduce them slowly while giving the player a chance to experiment with them a little bit before putting them to the test. For some games, that actually means it might be best to spread the tutorial out over several hours of gameplay. Front-loading too much into the very beginning of the game might give you a bit of information overload, and then you start forgetting stuff. That's when you'll have to hope that the game saves tutorials to be read later somewhere, or worse, try your luck with YouTube tutorials. What is up, y'all? 420 Man back at it again with another gameplay guide to Doki Literature Club. Don't forget to subscribe to my Patreon, visit my merch store, and pre-order my book, Ruminations on the Metaphysical Boundary Between Quantum Space and the Unknown. New York Times, bitch! It is possible to spread a tutorial out too much though. I find JRPGs especially are bad for this. You could be 10, 15, 20 hours in and they're still dumping new mechanics on you with these long blocks of text to explain how they work. Spread it out too much and it can feel like you're stuck in this never-ending tutorial for a game that never truly starts. You'll spend all this time learning all the mechanics, taking notes, really studying up and getting ready to put it all to the test, only for the game to end before you even get a chance. Timing is another important part of a tutorial. You can't just dump a new mechanic on the player in the middle of an action sequence and expect them to master it immediately. The best tutorials will give you some space to play around with it and get to know the controls before they really start to challenge you. Imagine if instead they just dumped a new power on you right in the middle of a boss fight and didn't give you any time to figure it out. You don't have to. Infamous Second Son already did that. This game has you gain new powers by absorbing them from other characters, so during most of the boss fights you end up taking their powers only to then be left with no idea how they work. I can tell they wanted this to be an epic fight where you figure out your new power just in time to beat the villain, but instead it just kinda killed the pacing, made the fight a lot harder than it should be, and proved why it's necessary for games to give you a chance to experiment before putting you to the test. I've always found that the best tutorials are the ones that let you feel it out yourself, but I'll admit that even though I don't like having a giant wall of text thrown at me, it is sometimes nice to have the more complex mechanics laid out for you before you're totally given free rein with them. Games have become a lot more complex than they used to be, so even though the retro gaming purists out there like to bash tutorials and say that games were way better when they just dropped you in, the truth is sometimes they're necessary. And making a tutorial that's both fun and effective at teaching you is an aspect of game development that I don't think gets appreciated enough. So the next time you're starting a new game, take a minute to appreciate it for teaching you the ropes, before you forget everything it told you and go back to the YouTube tutorials.
So that's how you spell boobies in the calculator app. Thanks for watching, everyone, and if you like this video, be sure to check out this one where I debate the merits of Nietzschean philosophy, and this one where I do a sick-ass keg stand.